All right, this is Sean Lennon with the Fightlete Report, and joining me is Henry Dooley, one of our new staff members on Fightlete.com. We're excited to have him on the show here today, Talkin Shop. We're recapping UFC 258 and giving our thoughts on the top three fights on the main card as well. And we'll see if we can do this as a weekly thing, but we appreciate Henry being on the show.
So my name's Henry Dooley. I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado. I train mostly Muay Thai and boxing, traditional boxing. Yeah, I got started in it about 5 years ago. Just started boxing training about 5 years ago, and just fell in love with the sport. Growing up, I had a friend whose uncle was actually one of Chuck Liddell's sparring partners.
Awesome.
So that's how I was just watching him. And a couple of years ago, I started coaching people. He has a big gym out there called JFM, which trains professional boxers and Muay Thai athletes.
Oh, nice. Nice. So have you trained to compete in them and Muay Thai?
I didn't train to compete in Muay Thai. I was training to compete in some amateur boxing bouts, but I ended up getting some concussions back to back that I couldn't really continue on, unfortunately.
All right. Well, let's talk about, where you're at, because Colorado has a hotbed for MMA recently. I mean, we have two huge gyms out there, as you're probably well of, maybe more than the gyms I know of. I know of Factory X Muay Thai and also Elevation Fight Team. And I know Raquel Pennington and Tisha Torres train out there as well. They're women's fighters in the UFC. I'm not sure the name of their gym, but I know they do train out in Colorado as well. So, tell us a little bit about that. Is just how big the sport's gone in Colorado.
Yeah, so there's a lot of gyms out here. I mean, there's the Dwayne Ludwig's Bang Muay Thai headquarters is out here in Denver, and the Onyx Lab with Trevor Whitman is also out here. Kamaru Usman was actually training at the Onyx Lab for a fight with Gilbert Burns this past weekend. So he's been out here training with Justin Gaethje and Trevor Whitman, and I think it definitely showed in his striking game. I mean, you can tell a difference just from that Jorge fight, how much better his striking had gotten since he came out here and started training with Trevor Whitman.
Oh, for sure, man. And Trevor is one of the best in the game. We saw him, take TJ Dillashaw to new levels as well. That's one of the guys he coaches, and when he was the bantamweight champion, and they're close. Dwayne Ludwig, rather. Dwayne Ludwig trains, with TJ Dillashaw, but Trevor Whitman did so many amazing things with Rose Namajunas as well. So it's been really amazing just to see them perform.
Yeah, I know Rose is still out there training with Trevor Whitman sometimes too. It'd be great to see her get back into it. I know she's kind of fallen out of love with the sport a little bit. So yeah, hopefully he can reignite that fire for her, because she was awesome.
Yeah, she is set to fight Zhang Weili, but we just don't know the timetable yet for her return. But apparently she is the number one contender for that fight. So that women's strawweight title will be on the line next time she fights. Yeah. And, Trevor Whitman, of course, works with Justin Gaethje, who went on to win the UFC interim lightweight title as well. So a lot of great coaches, a lot of great fighters out there by you.
Yeah, there's great gyms out here. And I think Ian was training for his fight against Kelvin Gastelum for his fight out here too. I know he was doing strength and conditioning out here.
Yeah, I think that, we saw Ian Heinisch, really go out there and take on Kelvin Gastelum. That was the first fight I wanted to talk to you about, is who did you have going into that fight? And for Ian Heinisch, he's a guy that kind of left Factory X Muay Thai. He went on to train in Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. He's been training abroad. I'm not sure what he did for this training camp in particularly, but I felt that he was going to have this fight against Gastelum. He was coming off a knockout finish. Gastelum was coming off, I think it was 2 or 3 straight losses in a row. So who did you have going into this fight?
So I actually had Kelvin Gastelum going into this one, because I heard an interview basically fighting for his job at this point. And I mean, he was so close to getting that middleweight belt before. And that fight with Izzy was probably one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. I mean, we know he has the skills and the striking and wrestling ability to be a top contender again. So I thought that he actually kind of I had Gastelum going in. I know he was an underdog, but I thought he was kind of win or die for him at this point. I know Dana's been cutting a lot of people from the roster too, so I think he felt some pressure, and I think he ended up proving himself that he can be in the UFC still.
Definitely a bigger guy like Heinisch as well, and Heinisch has had tremendous top game success, when he's on top of guys, and obviously he's finished guys, big finish in his last fight. So yeah, I thought that the deck was stacked against Calvin, especially sometimes he doesn't have the best gas tank in the later round, but he proved it. And my hat's off to Calvin in this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's ready to keep moving on, and hopefully refocusing has got him ready to challenge for the belt. He's a great personality for the UFC.
For sure. And I think it was like his weight cut and stuff that was hindering him from having the better performances. And obviously, he lost a tough one to Darren Till, and Darren Till is huge. So he was there to take on guys that have, bigger size than he is, He's been outsized before in a lot of matches. So there was no difference between him and Heinisch. I just felt like Calvin just kind of pushed that pace early on, and he wouldn't let go. It was almost like seeing the Calvin from the Ultimate Fighter, season. And I thought it was he fought tremendously. And who do you think he takes on next?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I mean, that whole division's kind of a mess right now with Izzy moving up.
So yeah, that's all I was gonna say is just Kelvin Gastelum, man. Next up for him, we'll see. There's some tough talent out there in the middleweight division. You've got Derek Brunson, who just had a big victory as well. But I mean, there's no shortage of competition, I think.
Yeah, definitely not. And that division's really stacked. I guess it just kind of we have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out with Izzy moving up and fighting Jan, and if he's going to stay up there or move back down. Kind of got to wait and see what his plans are.
I agree. And I mean, it's tough to pick like one guy in particular, because we have two big middleweight fights. One is the number one contendership. We have Robert Whittaker is going to be taking on Paulo Costa on April 17th. And I believe April 10th, it's going to be Darren Till against Marvin Vettori. And so either of those fights kind of drop off, Kelvin would fit right in there with that time frame as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think both those fights are going to be really telling too. We'll see if Paulo was really even ready to take on the top guys, or there was just some hype around him.
Definitely. And now we move forward and we look at the women's co-main event in the flyweight division. Alexa Grasso defeats Maycee Barber. And oh man, I had picked Maycee to win this fight. I thought this was going to be her big comeback fight. For some reason, I figured she was going to come out there and, actually, I thought she would utilize her wrestling more, and I thought she would get that big finish eventually. But Alexa Grasso, she shows that she's the real deal here at 125 pounds and is in a nice spot right now, maybe moving up to take on Shevchenko. But I mean, who would want to take on Shevchenko at this point is beyond me. But, Grasso is kind of in that position where her trajectory is going upward. Any thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, so I had Maycee Barber going into. I thought this was going to be her big comeback. She's from Greeley, Colorado, which is like 20 minutes away from me. I was born there, actually, so I got to say I'm a little partial on that one. I'm a big Maycee fan. I mean, Alex Grasso looked great, though. I think Maycee's striking needs a lot of work. You can tell she was trying to use that jab to find range, but sometimes she was throwing it and she was so far away. Maybe it's time for her to think about switching camps and maybe coming back out here to train with one of the striking coaches out here. She's so young. I mean, she has so much time. She's only 22, and I know she wanted to be the youngest UFC champion, but I think she has so much potential going forward that just getting fights under her belt is going to be good for her.
I agree, and I think that as Dana White said, she's a baby. She's got time in this sport to grow and a lot of room to grow. Don't count her out. That's what he was saying about her at the post-fight press conference. Said that she's a savage, one of the most ambitious and youngest women she's ever met. So I expect nothing but big things from her, but she's young and she's got nothing but time. And that's what he had to say about her. I'm in agreement with that. How about you?
Yeah, she can only go up from here. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, I think that year layoff was pretty rough too, throwing her in there with a big opponent. So it was a tough comeback fight for her. I know that's what she wanted, but maybe getting that cage rust off, or ring rust, would have been a little nice just from being out for so long.
Definitely. And Alexa Grasso now is in a good position at 13-3 overall. And she's got her second straight victory in the UFC right now since her last loss to Carla Esparza. So I think she looks good. I think there's some tough women in this division, at the flyweight division, and we'll have to see how it shapes up at the top.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see who can take on Valentina. I think she's such a dominant champion too. It'll be interesting. I think Grasso looked really, really good. Like you said, she only has a couple fights in the UFC so far. So I think some more experience wouldn't do her bad either. I think jumping in a title fight might be a little too soon, but yeah, she's definitely got the potential to be champion.
Yeah, I mean, I think she could take on someone like Caitlin Chukagian. You know, obviously Jennifer Maia just came off the loss to Shevchenko this past November. I don't know who would be next in line for her. It seems like they always want to move up. What's her name after she just got a big victory as well? It seems like they want to move her up. She's like right there, but she hasn't gotten a title shot yet. You know what I mean? And so I think it's kind of like a log jam up there. And once they cleared away, then we can see, you know, what other contenders. I was talking about Joanne Calderwood. I think they're trying to aim to get her to be the number one contender soon, because she lost to Maya. And
yeah, I think she deserves it too. She's looked really good.
Yeah, I think so. And especially after her last fight, she just beat Jessica Eye. So that's a good case. But we'll see what the UFC does with them.
Oh, it's a great case. Yeah. That seems like the one Dana wants to push.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. And then my question is, do you think women's fights are exciting? We've seen a lot of criticism about the women in UFC. We've seen that from like Stephen A. Smith. And I'm not saying this guy's an expert at all, but, you know, you heard what he had to say, you know, believing that women shouldn't fight in the cage or in the ring. So, you know, when they have to deal with all that, what do you think about women's MMA in particular?
I mean, I'm a huge fan. I think after especially the Joanna and Wei Li fight, I don't know how you couldn't be a fan. That was one of the greatest back and forth fights of all time, I think. I mean, it was Fight of the Year nominee. I think it might have won it, actually. Stephen A. Smith has said some pretty ridiculous things, like you mentioned, about MMA. So I think people that say women's MMA is boring need to just give it another chance, because there's a lot of good women out there that are fun to watch. You know, the next big women's fight, Nunes versus Anderson, that should actually put up a challenge for Amanda, who's been so dominant these past couple years.
Yeah.
Really, since she beat Cyborg. I think that'll be an exciting fight, and I hope people will give that fight a chance, because they're both great fighters.
Yeah, same here. I'm hoping for a lot of excitement with that one, and I hope it is more of a fight than what we're used to seeing Nunes just put him away real quick, or just one-side dominance. And Megan is taller. Megan is stronger, looks stronger. I'm not saying she is stronger, but she does look taller, and she seems like she can generate a lot of power. But Nunes has that power, man. I mean, men have gotten hit by Nunes, and they've been knocked down before, or knocked out when training. So I can only imagine what's in store that night.
Yeah, Nunes, she's just such a force. I think ever since Ronda, we didn't really think anybody could be like that big of a star in women's MMA. Amanda's just been so dominant and so fun to watch. I mean, she does put people away. She's so good.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we're going to be talking about, of course, the main event of 258, and that was Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. I had Usman winning this fight. I don't know if you had seen my prediction. I actually went by unanimous decision for Usman.
Yeah, that was my guess too. I had the same thing. I was taking Usman by unanimous decision. I think just based on his previous performances and the fact that they used to be training partners, it was difficult to see that fight was going to be finished, just because you didn't know if they still had some feelings for each other, didn't want to hurt each other.
Right.
It's hard fighting training partners.
Yeah, I can only imagine what was on their mind going into that one. But Usman was kind of like, he wasn't deterred, but he was kind of like, you know, upset what Burns had said. He's like, I'm coming for your belt and food off your plate and you know, all those terms. And it looks like he did take it personally. You saw when the opening bell came, he didn't touch gloves with Burns. So he was in game mode, and he got his 17th victory in a row. I mean, he beats George St. Pierre for most overall consecutive victories. So not title fights, but overall consecutive victories. He beats GSP for the welterweight division history of UFC, and that's huge in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the big differences being the title fights, GSP having more defenses. Kamaru didn't get that chance for a title, and he had to go through some killers to get that title shot too.
Yes.
I mean, he had to go through, I mean, Leon Edwards is just one example, but he really had to, and then all of his title fights have been hard too. I mean, that welterweight division is so stacked, and he's proved that he is the best at that weight.
Definitely. All I have to say is that when we saw that fight, initially Burns seemed to be connecting on Usman. It was exciting. I thought it was a knockdown, but Usman says he lost his balance. They didn't count it as a knockdown. It was more like like he fell on himself or tripped, but he was hitting Usman, and Usman was then firing back. It was exciting, for as long as it lasted, going to that second round. What did you think of the fight?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the fight was really exciting. I know Usman's been criticized before for being kind of a safe fighter, grappling and holding guys there, foot stomping, that kind of stuff. I love Usman personally. I think he showed just a whole nother side of his game. Obviously, a lot of striking in the Colby match, but I think he really showed that he can go toe-to-toe with anybody in that department. I think moving camps, at least from what he's said, has been extremely beneficial for him, just because he's learning about new things, especially in the stand-up game.
Definitely. Yeah. And for him to go out there and just really, put it all on the line with Usman, it was a great performance. I think Burns was one of the toughest guys he's had to take on. Colby Covington, that was a 5-round fight. Another 5-round fight he had with Masvidal, but that was one-sided. And Usman really showed that jab. He just demonstrated exactly what he can do with a jab.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument that he has the best jab in the UFC right now. I mean, that was great. He really showcased it well. There was some video footage of Trevor Whitman saying, use the jab. You got this if you just use the jab. And he did exactly what his coach told him to do, and it worked out. So I'm really happy for him. I think it's going to be tough to take that belt away from him.
I think so as well. And next up, we heard that he would want to fight Masvidal. He said because of the crap that Masvidal has been talking, he says, let's see what happens under a full camp. He says that he's called out Masvidal saying he can finish him. We'll see, we'll see what's next for him. It's stacked on top, right? You've got Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Khamzat Chimaev in this division. I know they want to make Covington and Edwards, and I've recently heard that was not a fight that Colby Covington wanted. We'll see what happens, but I mean, I think Usman and Masvidal, if the fans are vocal about it. I know their managers are already clamoring for them to do a season of The Ultimate Fighter leading up to the rematch. Then we'll see if UFC, pulls the trigger on it.
Yeah, I personally don't really think Masvidal deserves the title shot again right away. I think Leon does, but I don't think you can make a better Ultimate Fighter matchup coaching wise. I mean, those guys would just go at each other. It'd be so entertaining. It would be like the Rampage and Rashad Evans season almost, with how much they'd trash talk each other. So
definitely, yeah, I think it would be an exciting one, and we'll wait and stay tuned. And Henry, I appreciate you joining us on the Fightlete Report, man, giving us your insight for UFC 258, and you're welcome back anytime. Of course, Saturday we have Blades versus Lewis. That's going to be a huge main card for the UFC as well. So remind everybody to tune in. Hopefully we can get together on Facebook and do something for the fight as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Anytime.
I can't wait for the fights this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I mean, Lewis and Blades, these guys were supposed to fight, I think, last November, and it got delayed and whatnot because of a positive COVID test. I mean, it's crazy to think how the positive COVID tests just keep affecting the fights. We had supposed to have Andre Ewell, and his fight got postponed to this weekend. He was supposed to fight the weekend before against Cody Stamann, and then he fought this past weekend's card. He fought Chris Gutierrez, and just it's crazy how the fights changed last minute because of that. We just heard that they moved the fight that was supposed to happen at 258 between Pedro Munhoz and Jamie Rivera. That's going to be on a late February card as well. So it's just crazy it's hard to keep up with all these changes due to COVID-19.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. But I think the UFC has done a really good job with handling everything. They've been able to put on all these events. Yeah. They were even able to bring in Conor for a fight, which I assume isn't easy when the crowd's not there.
Yeah, I mean, they did have a limited crowd in Abu Dhabi, but yeah, you're definitely right. If it's not sold out, it's not an easy way to do. And then another change is Drakkar Klose. He was supposed to fight Herbert. I forget his last name, but he was supposed to fight that guy. Instead, now he's fighting Luis Pena. Luis Pena's taking that fight on short notice as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's also a nice one that they added.
And I think one of the early prelim fights from last weekend was canceled due to COVID too. A women's bout.
Yeah, you're right.
So hopefully they get that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like there's just so many changes going on, from week to week. It's hard to keep up. Like, I try to do my best to keep up, but it's not easy at all. And I think the fight you were talking about was I think it was Molly McCann. I'm trying to remember that fight that you were talking about. It's going to bother me unless I look it up. The one that was originally canceled.
Yeah, I can't. Man.
Robertson and Maverick. That was crazy. And then also Chris Weidman and Uriah Hall was canceled because Weidman has a positive COVID test.
Yeah.
And Julia Robertson, actually, her fight was not even COVID-19 related, her cancellation.
Oh, okay.
But the one thing that was scary is Bobby Green collapsed after the weigh-ins, and his fight with Jim Miller was off. So we still have, the regular things that happen, the craziness that happens during a fight week, along with COVID.
Yep. Yeah.
Weight cut issues.
Yep. It's
that never goes away.
Especially. So. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, yeah, then I appreciate you again, Henry, and make sure everybody check out fightletereportpodcast.com. Henry is going to be a staff writer on here, so we can't wait to read his stuff, and we'll welcome him back on. Fightlete Report Remote, we'll probably be back on Saturday evening. I'll give out the time for that one. It depends when the card is on. We'll probably be here around 5:30, 6 p.m., and we'll be doing the live remote before the main card as well.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Anytime, Henry. Appreciate you being on the show. Take care, brother.
You too.